You all know on Monday, the House passed a bipartisan bill to increase stimulus payments from $600 a person to about $2,000 per person. And they've sent it to the Senate. Now, in the Senate, you have Mitch McConnell. Now, Mitch McConnell is the Grim Reaper. On his desk, you will find a stack of bills passed by the Democratic-controlled House, like the HEROES Act, the Green New Deal, other things that would make the lives of American people much, much better, right? And, well, they're just going to sit on his desk because he's not going to even bring them out to a vote. Now, when it comes to the stimulus checks, well, Mitch McConnell had a choice to make, buck the president and threaten the Georgia runoff race by blocking the bill, or allow the dirty poors to have some tiny little bit of stimulus money that is more than what they had offered them before. So what side is Mitch McConnell going to come onto? Well, he's going to block it. He already blocked it. In fact, I want to show you a video here of Bernie Sanders bringing this up, and then Mitch McConnell blocking it. Take a look.
So, Madam President, would the senator modify his request that immediately following the vote on the veto override, the Senate proceed to the consideration of H.R. 9051, that the bill be considered read a third time and the Senate vote on passage of the bill without intervening action or debate. Further, that if passed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection to the request for modification?
Object.
Objection is heard. Is there objection to the original?
I object.
Objection is heard.
All right, so there you go. Now, earlier today, as you can see, Bernie Sanders there promised to use the defense budget as leverage in order to force a vote on those checks. So now that means is that since that was shut down, Bernie Sanders will be filibustering the NDAA, meaning that Congress is going to have to stay in session until there is an up or down vote on this, which to me seems like a no-brainer. It passed the House with 44 Republicans. It's got massive public support. In fact, Data for Progress put out a poll here that says that 78% of the American people support $2,000 checks. And now you're getting Republicans in the Senate that are also putting their support towards this. In fact, you have two people that are going to be very well affected by this. These are two Republicans that are fighting to keep their Senate seats in Georgia, a very consequential election that could determine control of the Senate. One, you have David Perdue. David Perdue just signaled his support for $2,000 checks. And here we've got Kelly Loeffler saying the same thing. Take a look.
So will you support that bill, that encouragement from the president once it gets to the Senate?
Well, look, the president has fought for our country from day one. He continues to fight for every single American. I've stood by the president 100% of the time. I'm proud to do that. And I've said, absolutely, we need to get relief to Americans now, and I will support that. But look, here's the issue. Democrats have blocked relief time and again. That's why we're in this situation as a country. We've tried to pass that relief since this summer. Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, they've admitted that they held it up because they were playing politics with the lives of Georgians and all Americans around this election. And we have to hold Democrats accountable on January 5th.
Oh, my God. Here we go. So, look, you heard her there. She's like, oh, yeah, of course, I support the president. I've always supported the president. Yes. Basically saying $2,000 checks. She would vote for it. Then, of course, she goes into trying to blame Democrats, which, of course, is nothing but bullshit lies. In fact, the last bill that was passed that the Democrats did block, because the Democrats did block a coronavirus stimulus bill, $1.8 trillion, you know, in I believe it was in the House. It was a bill put forward that had $1,200 checks in it. So now, why did Nancy Pelosi block it? It's because they had corporate liability protections in it. for coronavirus, meaning that, if you get coronavirus and you try to sue your employer, you can't. And so Nancy Pelosi said, no, that's a non-starter. Yes, it's got $1,200 checks in it, but it doesn't have state and local aid, and it has coronavirus liability protections, and I'm not voting for that. I'm not gonna put that forward. So we're not gonna do anything on that. And so Mitch McConnell dropped that provision, as well as Nancy Pelosi dropped state and local aid from her bill. That's how they came to the $900 billion compromise, where again we've got the $600 checks. So again, that whole idea of blaming Democrats for this, no, if you put poison pills in legislation, obviously it's not going to pass. You put a non-starter in a piece of legislation, then no, they're going to vote against that. And so I want to give, look, I want to give Pelosi credit for not budging on that demand. Again, a lot of us don't like Nancy Pelosi. I think she should be replaced. I think she's a huge impediment to the progressive movement. But she didn't give Mitch McConnell what he wanted on that, which corporate liability would have hurt a lot of people. Again, we've had situations where you have these companies, I believe it was Tyson, in Waterloo, I believe it was a plant in Waterloo, Iowa, that, there were cases of coronavirus just everywhere. And the bosses, they knew about it. They weren't doing anything about it. They weren't doing anything to protect their workers. In fact, there were supervisors that were literally placing bets on how many people would get infected with coronavirus in that factory. They were not, and by the way, that same meat processing plant was actually linked to coronavirus outbreaks in the community. And so you don't want to pass corporate liability in this situation. So again, I do want to give her credit for not bowing to that demand. Now, of course, there's a lot of other things you can criticize her on about her negotiation skills, but at the very least, you can say, good on her for not passing that. But anyway, back to the same, back to the rest of this, okay? So again, you've got Loeffler on board with $2,000 checks. You've got Perdue on board with $2,000 checks. Now you've got Senator Marco Rubio in favor of these checks. In fact, here's what he said on Twitter. Quote, I am concerned about the debt, but working families have been hurt badly by the pandemic. This is why I supported $600 direct payments to working families, and if given the chance, will vote to increase the amount. So now you've got, Republican senators. So now we're going to need quite a few Republican senators, at least a dozen, in order to break the 60-vote threshold, if this even goes up to a vote. And of course, that's going to take a lot to get to. And what Bernie Sanders is doing right now, by saying he's going to filibuster, is he is slowing down the process, allowing Democrats to play more politics with this in order to pressure McConnell into doing an up or down vote and getting Republicans to support it. In fact, let me go in here and over to the American Prospect, where David Dan explains, quote, McConnell has options to eventually get to the defense bill vote. He can move to end debate, known as a cloture vote, and push past Sanders' objection. However, he cannot do that on Tuesday because he will not have enough senators in the building to win a floor vote. No floor votes were scheduled for Tuesday because Rand Paul already signaled that he would hold up the defense bill override for a day. Senators were already informed that no votes would be scheduled, and they have not been in Washington since they passed that COVID relief bill on last Monday. With senators scattered out across the country, McConnell will not have a quorum to hold votes tomorrow. This means that as long as Sanders objects, which he will continue to do, McConnell cannot begin the process of holding votes in the defense bill until Wednesday. There has to be an intervening day between that and the final vote, making Thursday, New Year's Eve, the intervening day, and Friday, New Year's Day, the day of the final vote to override the veto. Throughout this time, Democrats can seek to bring up the Cash Act for a vote. That is, of course, the standalone bill that would increase the checks size from 600 to 2,000. There's nothing in it. It's just a 100% clean piece of legislation passed through the House, with 44 Republican votes. And then Mitch McConnell, of course, would have to object to it every single time it is brought up. And Schumer has already announced that he will move to call up the Cash Act on Tuesday for a vote. So basically what Bernie Sanders is planning to do is to be a complete pain in the ass to Mitch McConnell in order to push for these checks. In fact, I've got more footage of Bernie Sanders on the floor fighting for us. Take a look.
Last night, the House of Representatives, with a 2/3 majority, 275 to 134, 2/3 bipartisan vote, moved to increase the direct payment going to working families from $600 per adult to $2,000 per adult. The House did the right thing. I congratulate them. And now it is time for the Senate to step up to the plate and do what the working families of this country overwhelmingly want us to do.
So again, Bernie Sanders, he goes on to cite polls. 78% of Americans want these increased checks, $2,000. It's incredibly popular. Donald Trump is also going after McConnell on Twitter right now, ramping up the pressure. And so this could work. And look, what Bernie Sanders is doing could be very effective in putting on the pressure. Look, no senator wants to be stuck in Washington on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. They just don't, okay? Now, Dan also notes, going back to that article, that looming over this is Senate runoff elections in Georgia, where John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock have made the $2,000 checks the primary closing argument of their campaigns. Later on, of course, being adopted by Warnock and, I'm sorry, not Warnock, but Loeffler and Perdue, the Republicans. Look, if Mitch McConnell wants to hold the Senate, well, then he might want to consider doing that vote. Again, the problem is that he doesn't want to do it because he thinks this could actually pass. It could pass that 60-vote threshold. Now, again, I want to be optimistic, but I don't want to be too optimistic, okay? We're dealing with Mitch McConnell, but the guy's always got a plan, okay? If he thinks that it is in his political, that it's advantageous for him politically and for the party, then he's going to vote for it, okay? But then again, maybe he doesn't see that. Maybe he sees this as a detriment or doesn't see this being important enough. Again, with McConnell, though, something's got to give. Something's got to give. But if they could pull this off, well, for one, hats off to Bernie, obviously. Bernie Sanders has been fighting for us throughout this whole time. Again, he's been pushing $2,000 checks since March. And actually, he's been pushing for a UBI. In fact, he did a piece of legislation with both Ed Markey and Kamala Harris to try to push a $2,000 a month UBI, as well as rent cancellation and other things. And so they've been, he's been fighting for that. I wish Kamala Harris had been a lot more active. In fact, I haven't heard a lot from her, as well as Joe Biden. Joe Biden, by the way, just, I think yesterday, tweeted in support of $2,000 checks. And so a little late to the party, but hey, he's here. He's here. So that's good. And of course, hats off to Pelosi for jumping on this. And Schumer. Normally, I am very critical of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. In this case, they're actually playing politics. It's kind of amazing to see. It's like, wait a minute. Are Democrats actually playing politics well? Could we actually end up getting this? What is going on here? And they're actually siding with Bernie Sanders, who, again, has been fighting for this for quite some time. Another person that has been pushing for this is Republican Josh Hawley, also in favor of $2,000 checks. So this is interesting. And by the way, they are trying to leverage that power of the blocking the NDA. That is something, of course, that is massively bipartisan as well, in order to get a vote on this. Now, Mitch McConnell is going to try to tie another poison pill into this. The repeal of Section 230, for example, that the president wants, he could tie it to that and sink this. That is certainly a possibility. In fact, I think that he's working on that, which is why we need to continue to push for a clean vote. Okay, so let's all support Bernie Sanders and the American people, most importantly, by calling on Mitch McConnell, like literally calling his office, fax it, do whatever you got to do, okay? And tell them what we deserve. The American people deserve a clean vote, especially for Republicans. I know Republicans, some of you hate watch this, but I'm pretty sure you're interested in getting $2,000 anyway, right? Well, the one person that's standing in the way is Mitch McConnell, standing in the way of what your president, President Trump, wants to do for the American people. Are you gonna let that stand? Are you gonna let Mitch McConnell block you from getting $2,000 a month? Or I'm sorry, not $2,000 a month, but a one-time $2,000 stimulus payment? Are you gonna let Mitch McConnell stand in that way? No, then give him pressure, give him hell. That's how you do it. And push him for a clean vote. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.